to 18th month timeline to get a coronavirus vaccine is very aggressive. What do you think about the president's announcement today?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. Look, usually vaccines take several years. So 12 to 18 months is super aggressive. And the president's idea of getting it this year, that would be wonderful, right? That would be amazing. I think most of us are very worried that's going to be hard to pull off. And one of the things is we want to make sure make sure that the vaccine is safe. And that just takes a little bit of time. So I'd rather get it right than just get it done fast. And my guess is it's going to be more into 2021 at some point before the vaccine becomes available.
Experts say we need to be ready for more outbreaks of COVID-19. After all of this, we've heard from ousted vaccine official Dr. Rick Bright. He told Congress yesterday that we might be in for possibly the darkest winter in modern history. If it turns out to be a pandemic for several years, what does life look like?
Yeah, so whatever happens in the long run, I think there is no question that we are going to have many more waves, certainly at least one more big wave in the fall and maybe other waves as well. And, I think without making it overly dramatic, I think it's going to be serious. I think we can get through it, but we're only going to get through it if we massively ramp up testing, we get our hospitals and healthcare system ready, we don't get caught flat-footed the way we did this first wave. It's a lot of work ahead, but I think if we do all that work, Gadi, I think we can get through the fall and winter without having to shut the whole country down for a long period of time.
Fingers crossed. And Doctor, you bring up the issue of testing. We've heard that we need to get more testing to get this outbreak under control. The FDA this week seemed to be cautioning against the accuracy of the rapid test by Abbott Laboratories that's been used at the White House. Here's what the president had to say about that today.
No, Abbott's it's a great test. It's a very quick test, and it can always be very rapidly double-checked. If you're testing positive or negative, it can always be double-checked, but it's a very good test. It's very portable, very quick.
Abbott Labs has put out a statement refuting this study, but how concerned should Americans be about tests that possibly give false negatives?
Yeah, so there are, almost every test that we're using does have some number of false negatives, including the Abbott test. The president is right. It is portable. It is fast, but it is not always 100%. It's not 100% accurate. And that's why I've always said testing is really, really important, but it's not our only strategy. And in the White House, people should be getting tested, but people should also be wearing masks. People should distance. That's how we're going to protect the president and that entire workplace. And by the way, we're going to have to employ a similar strategy for workplaces across the country when people get back.
When it comes to false positives and false negatives, which one is worse for possibly skewing numbers and getting a realistic idea of what's going on with the pandemic right now?
Well, if you imagine, they both have costs, and depends on what test you're using and why. So for the virus test, when you're trying to figure out are you infected or not, to me, the false negative is the big problem, because it gives people a sense of confidence that they don't have the virus when they actually do. And then they can go out and spread it to other people. So to me, that's the bigger problem. Obviously, false positives also has its problems. When we get into immunity tests, then false positives become a problem, because then you're telling people, hey, you're immune when they're not. And that has its own problem. So ideally, we'd have no false negatives or false positives. Unfortunately, that ideal doesn't exist. But we have to trade these things off against each other. I don't love the false negatives with the virus test, because it does mean infected people walk around, they're not.
And how useful is it to ramp up the coronavirus tests to millions a day if some of the tests are not 100% accurate?
So look, it's going to still be useful. Again, people bring up, if it's not accurate, you can still have it. Yeah, but most people are going to get caught by it. And the goal is not to get everybody. The goal is not to make the system perfect. The goal is to get most people most of the time, so we community transmission and prevalence of the disease to minimum, so that when you walk into a coffee shop, you're going to be confident the guy giving you coffee is not infected, shedding virus. We don't need a perfect test for that. We need a lot of tests. And if they have a certain level of false positives or negatives, we can live with it. Again, not ideal, but it's still pretty useful.
Not ideal, but definitely progress. Thanks so much, Dr. Jha.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Virginia rolled out phase